Shalom. I welcome the Light of the Hill Ministries. And in today's teaching, we will be continuing in the series, The Strange Woman. If you want to follow along, I will be posting it in the first comment box. May we all walk as Yeshua walked. And now, under the teaching in the series. Proverbs 31:19. She shall stretch out her hands to the distaff, and her hand shall hold the spindle. The Hebrew word for spindle is pelek, Strong's H6418, which means spindle, distaff, whirl of a spindle, and is a stick about 36 inches long, fashioned usually with weighted bottom as a device to form and spin yarn taken off the distaff and spun at high speeds. The point of this proverb is that the bride of Messiah is a skillful bride because it took skill and effort to spin yarn. So she must constantly put her hands to work for Yahweh. And whatever you do, do it heartily, as to the master and not to men, knowing that from the master you shall receive the reward of the inheritance. It is the master Messiah you serve. Colossians 3, verses 23-24. All that your hand finds to do, do it with your might. For there is no work or planning or knowledge or wisdom in the grave where you are going. Ecclesiastes 9, verse 10. The Hebrew root word that is used here for hold is tamech, Strong's H8551, which means to uphold, retain, hold up, support. With this word being used in terms of the skill of the wife being described, we take note of the use of this verb in Psalms 41, verse 12. You uphold me in your integrity and set me before your face forever. David, or David, praises Yahweh for the fact that Yahweh upholds him in his integrity. This word is also translated as hold fast in Psalm 17, verse 5. My steps have held fast to your paths. My feet have not slipped. The bride of Messiah then works hard with the skill that she has been given her, and diligently holds fast to the paths of righteousness. She finds whatever her hands does for the work of Messiah with all her might, for her reward and inheritance is in her husband, Yahweh. She shall extend her hand to the poor, as she shall reach out her hands to the needy. Proverbs 31, verse 20. The bride of Messiah opens up her hand to the poor and needy, lending a helping hand wherever Yahweh leads her to. The Hebrew root word that is used here for poor is ani, Strong's H6041, which means poor, afflicted, humble, oppressed, and primarily refers to a person who is suffering some kind of disability or distress. The one who is afflicted and literally lives day to day and is often socially defenseless, being subject to constant oppression. The Hebrew word for needy is abion, Strong's H34, meaning in want, needy, poor, and may represent one who is poor in a material sense, as he may have lost his ancestral land, or may be without clothing or lacks food, and could also be understood as the picture of a person who has fallen due to hard times. Yahweh, throughout his word, gives us instructions on how to treat the poor. When there is a poor man with you, one of your brothers, within any of the gates in your land which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you, do not harden your heart, nor shut your hand from your poor brother, for you shall certainly open your hand to him, and certainly lend him enough for his need, whatever he needs. Deuteronomy 15, verses 7-8. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household is dressed in scarlet. Proverbs 31, verse 21. Under her husband's care, she's not afraid when it does snow because she knows her husband protects her from the storms of life. He doesn't move her from it, but instead keeps her in it. I do not pray that you should take them out of the world, but that you keep them from the wicked one. John 17, verse 15. While the wicked one may attack and persecute, we do not follow in his ways. The bride of Messiah does not belong to the wicked one. It does not belong to the world, as her husband isn't of the world. They are not of the world, as I am not of the world. John 17, verse 16. Rather, it is his word that sets her apart. Set them apart in your truth. Your word is true. John 17, 17. Therefore, she need not fear the cold of snow, for she and her house is dressed in the garments of the Good Shepherd. The Hebrew word used for scarlet is shani, Strong's H 8144, which is a bright red color and vivid dye that is believed to be obtained from the crushed body of an insect or worm that attaches itself to the leaves and twigs of the oak tamarind tree, lays eggs on it, puts a sack of red juice around the egg to protect them, then dies, having emptied itself out of them. A wonderful picture of Yahushua. Scarlet speaks of sacrifice and typifies Messiah and his suffering and his giving of himself to be crushed for our iniquity. It is almost impossible to get the red stain out of linen. No amount of scrubbing or washing or bleaching can actually take this red worm dye out of clothing and material. The Hebrew word used here for dressed is labash, Strong's H 3847, which means wear, put on, be clothed, apparel, dress. The bride of Messiah has the assurance of righteousness because of the shed blood of our husband Yahushua, that she covers herself with it. And no one can take that away, as Romans 8 says. But in all this, we are more than overcomers through him who loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death nor life, nor messengers, nor principalities, nor powers, neither the present nor future, nor height nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of Elohim, which is in Messiah Yeshua, our Master. Romans 8, 37, 39. She shall make tapestry for herself. She is dressed in fine linen and purple. Proverbs 31:22. The Hebrew word that is used here for tapestry is marbad, Strong's H 4765, which means a spread, coverlet, coverings, and comes from the root word rabad, Strong's H 7234, which means to spread, deck. The word marbad is only used twice in Scripture, here in this proverb and in Proverbs 7:16. I have spread my bed with coverings, colored linens of Mizraim. This would be how the strange woman covers herself, being clothed in linens of Mizraim. That is to say, she is clothed in worldly ways. The bride of Messiah, by contrast, is dressed in fine linen and purple, the proper garments of righteousness. Revelations 3:5. He who overcomes shall be dressed in white robes, and I shall by no means blot out his name from the book of life, but I shall confess his name before my Father and before his angels. Revelations 19:8. And to her it was given to be dressed in fine linen, clean and bright. For the fine linen is the righteousness of the set-apart ones. The bride of Messiah, then, is to be pure and clean, bright, with righteousness that comes from only Yeshua, who is our righteousness. He will not only blot out our names from the book of life, because we have overcome by his shed blood and walk in his ways. And it's up to us at this time to keep walking in the robe of righteousness as we keep his commandments. Deuteronomy 6:25. And it is righteousness for us when we guard to do all his commands before Yahweh our Elohim, as he has commanded us. The Hebrew root word for this is translated as purple, is argaman, Strong's H 713. This speaks of royalty, as kings would wear robes of purple. Since our King Yeshua wears this robe, we are covered in it, and thus we have the authority to do the works of the King given to us as brides of Messiah. It is because of this she makes him known at the city gates. Her husband is known in the city gates when he sits among the elders of the land. Proverbs 31:23. The Hebrew word for known is yada, Strong's H 3045, which means to know, to acknowledge, clearly understood, to perceive, distinguish, and discern. And here it is written in a nifl verb form tense, which can be rendered the meaning of to be made known, become known, be relevant, to make oneself known, be perceived. The Hebrew word for gate is sha'ar, Strong's H 8179, which means gate, door, entrance, and comes from the root verb sha'ar, Strong's H 8176, which means to think, split open, reason out, calculate, reckon, estimate. The gates of the city was a place of thinking, opening, reasoning, calculating, and reckoning, a place where right ruling and justice was proclaimed and carried out before all. Once one did enter in the gates, one would be subject to the laws that were placed inside it. It was an ancient checkpoint, making sure one would abide in the laws inside it, and also keeping predators outside. We too must go through a checkpoint, a door, in order to enter into the kingdom of Yahweh. Yeshua was and is that door. Amen, amen, I say to you, he who does not enter through the door into the sheepfold, but climbs up by another way, that one is a thief and a robber. But he who enters through the door is the shepherd of the sheep. The doorkeeper opens for him, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own by name and leads them out. And when he has brought out his own sheep, he goes before them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. And they shall by no means follow a stranger, but shall flee from him, because they do not know the voice of strangers. John 10:1-5. We are to let the King to decide who can come into our hearts, and who do we, and what we do that, and we do that by posting his laws into our gates, hearts. We as a bride make known his Torah, thereby making our husband's instructions known for all to see. The Hebrew root word that is translated as sit is yashab, Strong's H 3427, and means sit, dwell, remain, abide, inhabit, sitting still. To sit in this case was to sit with the intention of learning or teaching. Our husband and king is the one whose feet we are to come and sit and learn. Miriam understood this very well, and why she chose the good portion. Yahushua answering said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and troubled about many matters, but one only is necessary. Miriam has chosen the good portion, which shall not be taken away from her. Luke 10:41-42. We as brides of Messiah are to sit at Yahushua's feet with the intention of learning, and what we learn, we teach others to do the same. Once we learn from him, we will be known by him, because we will do what he instructs us to do. This is the essence of the bride of Messiah, listening and doing. And by doing, we make him known. She shall make fine linen and sell them. They shall give girdles for each merchant, for the merchants. Proverbs 31:24. What this means is that the bride of Messiah only produces product that is of the highest quality and skill, and will do so not only to her own people, but to anyone in the world. We must be set apart in all that we do to all and all before us. Our ability to walk in truth, our girdles, is of the highest quality, so that we can truly be a light to the nation, guarding his Torah that is to be upon our hearts and overflow with good fruits. Strength and splendor are her garments, and she rejoices in time to come. Proverbs 31:35. Now the Hebrew word for splendor is Hadar Strong's H1926, which means an ornament, honor, splendor, array. The bride of Messiah is then properly dressed with strength and the splendor of her set-apartness. This should remind us of the scriptures in which Paul talks about how a woman should be adorned. Likewise, that the woman dress themselves becomingly, with decency and sensibleness, not with braided hair or gold or pearls or costly garments, but with good works, which is becoming for women undertaking worship of Elohim. 1 Timothy 2:9-10. The strength that a woman is dressed is not in her outward apparel, but in her inward parts, such as decency, sensibleness, and good works. And as Kepha Peter says, your adornment should not be outward, arranging the hair, wearing gold, or putting on dresses, but the hidden man of the heart, with the incorruptible ornament of a meek and peaceable spirit, which is of great value before Elohim. 1 Peter 3:3-4. Lest the men think themselves exempt from this, remember this applies to you as well, since we are all brides of Messiah. We too should have decency, sensibleness, good works, and a meek and peaceable spirit. And in wearing all this, the bride of Messiah can rejoice in time to come, seeing that her future husband is with her. The Hebrew word that is translated as rejoices comes from the root verb sakha, Strong's H7832, which means to laugh or celebrate, play, rejoice, scorn. She will rejoice because she knows that in the future her husband will destroy all the enemy. While she awaits her husband's return, she remains strong and courageous, with garments of set-apartness, and in her garment of strength and splendor she can rejoice and laugh in the midst of trials and tribulation, because her husband stands by her side, enduring it with her. This may be the reason why Paul says, rejoice in Yahweh always. And again I say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men. The Master is near. Philippians 4:4-5. We can be gentle because our Master is right by our side. And so we rejoice in the fact that He is with us. And so our actions can be gentle and our words can be with kindness. She shall open her mouth with wisdom, and her tongue is with the Torah of kindness. Proverbs 31:26. The bride of Messiah who has truth on her lips with kindness that the word of Yahweh teaches her. The Hebrew root word that is translated as tongue is lashon, Strong's H3956, which means tongue, language, tongue shape. We are told that the tongue of the wise makes knowledge good, but the mouth of fools pours out foolishness. Proverbs 15:2. The bride of Messiah's tongue is good, as she teaches with great wisdom and true kindness. The strange woman, however, pours out foolishness, meaning she doesn't teach wisdom at all, but instead teaches evil things. We, on the other hand, if we are Yahushua's bride, must not only teach it, but do it as well. In Hebrew, the word that is translated as kindness comes from the root word chesed, Strong's H2617, which means goodness, kindness, deeds of devotion, faithfulness. Psalms 101 verse 1 says, I sing of kindness and right ruling to you, O Yahweh. I sing praises. David sings of the kindness, goodness, and deeds of devotion and faithfulness of Yahweh. Yahweh made a covenant of love towards us through the shed blood of His Son, and this is certainly something we can praise Him about. Truly, His kindness endures forever. The bride of Messiah then speaks of the kindness that our husband gives to us, that He is good. He does deeds of devotion towards us. He is a faithful husband. The strange woman speaks of the harshness of the king, that he is not good, that his deeds are evil towards us, and he is also not faithful towards us and doesn't care. We, as the bride of Messiah, are to open our mouth with wisdom and let the Torah of kindness be on our tongue. Our speech reveals a lot about who we are. We are either the bride of Messiah or we are the strange woman. May we examine those things in our own hearts and listen carefully to what we say and see what it reveals about ourselves. Remember the words of Paul, let no corrupt word come out of your mouth, but only such as good for the use of building up, so as to impart what is pleasant to the hearers. Do not grieve the set-apart Spirit of Elohim, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness, wrath, and displeasure, and uproar, and slander be put away from you, along with all evil. Ephesians 4:29-31. To recap, the bride of Messiah, she is generous and compassionate to those in need. She has no fear. She knows Yahweh will provide. She supports her husband. She understands and does good. She is strong and honorable. She looks forward with joy. She is careful and speaks words of wisdom and kindness. The opposite of that is the strange woman who is not generous and has no compassion to those in need. She doesn't rely on Yahweh to provide for her. Rather, she trusts others to provide for her and fears them. She has no understanding and is evil. She is weak and dishonors others. She has no joy. She speaks silly words and is unkind. May we see what we are and make the right choice to either stay a bride of Messiah, or if we know we are the strange woman, repent, and become the bride that our Master wants us to be. In the next teaching, we will continue on with the bride of Messiah in Proverbs 31 and rid ourselves of the strange woman. If you find this teaching a blessing, please be sure to bless others with it by sharing, commenting, liking, and subscribing to the channel. Thanks. And Yahweh's love, compassion, shalom be to you and your homes.